Good afternoon, and can you hear me okay? Okay, well, welcome to our May Speaker Series presentation. We're really happy that you're here. We have Mike D'Astolo has returned to us from AARP. He has spoken before. He's one of our favorite speakers, and we do appreciate him coming back. He is going to talk to us today about the 6 pillars of brain health. I'm hoping like pillar 1 through 4 is on memory retention. Then I'll be a happy camper, so we'll hope for the best there. He has been an AARP speaker, I think since what, 2017?
Right.
Okay, so he has several different topics he focuses on. And he has also volunteered with the National Park Service at both the Fredericksburg Battlefield and Chatham Manor. So he's also a Civil War enthusiast, and I'm sure he has a lot of good information to share in that regard too. Our next presentation will be June 5th, and Jean is working on that presentation, and it's going to be on paramedicine, which is all of the great services that our paramedics can offer to us, and also on safety alert devices. So we'll get some more information out to you on that presentation as we fully develop it. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for that one too. And I see just tons of my LOWLINC friends here. Is there anyone here who is not a LOWLINC member? Okay, well, welcome and thank you for coming. And if you would like to learn more about the organization, there are some brochures on the back table. We are a service organization serving our Lake of the Woods community of older adults. And I will tell you in all honesty that if you can't find something that interests you in LOWLINC, then there's nothing you want to do, because we cover it all, and we have a great time doing it, and we're very, very proud of what we're able to offer the community. So without further ado, Mike.
Thank you. I want to thank Margaret for inviting me back. It's always good to be welcomed back. And this is a good audience. I've been here a couple times, and you folks are pretty good. You know, you really get into it. This is
you can let go of the mic.
Okay, this is a fun presentation. I'm going to tell a lot of personal stories because my family needs a lot of brain health. Okay, so we're going to talk. I'm going to use a lot of examples to stress some of the points. I can almost bet that you can relate to a lot of my stories. Okay, because we're all at that age now where you know, our memory may not be what it was when we were 20 years old. Okay? All right, so I want to start off by asking you a question. If someone were to say to you, total health, what comes to mind? What comes to mind when you say total health?
Strong muscles.
Strong muscles, okay? So I guess that'd be body, right?
No illness.
Brain.
Brain, yes, brain. Okay, what else?
Numbers.
Mind, body,
Core, strong core.
emotion,
Core, strong core. Strong core.
strong core. Yes. Okay, what else?
Spiritual.
Spiritual. Okay. Mind, body, spirit. That's the answer I usually get. Listen how we say that. Mind, body, spirit, as if they're separate entities. The mind and the body, when I say mind, I'm talking the brain specifically. It has a symbiotic relationship with the body. If the brain isn't functioning, the muscles, the organs, the bones don't function. And if the bones, organs, and muscles don't function, neither is your brain functioning properly. Okay? I think I've given this presentation at least 50 times. Okay? The one thing that comes up as we get old, the one thing that people are afraid of is not having their sight diminished or having their hearing, having a little bit of hearing loss. It's the loss of memory. It's living and not remembering who your kids are or who your grandkids are. That's frightening. Okay? And I think that that is something that is really in the back of the mind of a lot of people. They want to keep their cognitive skills. Now, I talk mind and body. The spirit I'm talking about is not the soul. I'm not talking the religious soul. I'm talking that spirit inside of you that says, I want to keep my mind as long as I can. Okay? That's the spirit. And if you have that, along with some of the healthy tips here, your body can probably do you a lot of justice. All right, before we begin, here's a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a neurosurgeon, okay? My medical skill is combat first aid, okay? That's about it, all right? But I am going to give you some simple, easy steps to follow to hopefully improve your cognitive skills. I want you to read, I'm going to be talking exercise, okay? Don't do exercises if you have a physical problem. Check it out with a doctor before you start your exercises, okay? I want you to look at the last paragraph. I'm going to tell you a story. I did this presentation at the Virginia Retired Teachers Association in Richmond. And I did this like 4 times that day, and I had to go upstairs and downstairs in different classrooms. There was a gentleman in my first class. He was in the back of the room, and the reason I remember that is because he had his walker and he was standing up. He wouldn't sit down. We had plenty of seats. And I said, sir, would you please sit down? He said, no, I prefer to stand. Okay, so we do the presentation, and I'm talking about movement. I'm talking about taking the stairs when you can instead of the elevator, and parking your car further out in the parking lot so you have to take a couple extra steps to the grocery store. And my next class is up on the 2nd floor. So I'm walking up the stairs, and this gentleman is behind me with his walker trying to walk up the stairs. And I said, sir, please take the stairs. Please take the elevator. And he says to me, Sonny, you told me to take the stairs. So that's why the disclaimer is there. All right? I don't take responsibility if you fall down the stairs with your walker. Okay. All right, so next slide. For years, the scientific theory was that you were born with a certain amount of brain cells, and as you got older, those brain cells deteriorated, and by the time you reach your old age, you were left with whatever cells you had. That's not true. Research now has shown that you can, in fact, grow brain cells. You can grow your brain, okay? It's just like a muscle. If you don't exercise your muscle, what happens? They deteriorate, they atrophy, you can't use them anymore. Same with the brain. You got to keep that brain moving, okay? Now, the aging process, getting old, is 30% genetic, okay? So if there is something in your family, okay, you probably will inherit it, but you have a 30% chance of that. You have a 70% opportunity to age gracefully if you follow some of these tips. Think about that, 70% you have some impact on of the aging process. Okay? So regardless of your age, you can reduce the chances of age-related diseases and improve your chances of maintaining your cognitive skills. Now, this is what we're going to talk today about. I'm going to talk about engaging your brain. How do you exercise your brain? Okay? I'm going to talk about socialization, how important that is. I'm going to talk about exercise. I'm going to talk about eating right. I'm going to talk about sleep. And I'm going to talk about stress. Okay? Now, when I talk about eating right, I'm not going to give you recipes. Okay? I'm not Martha Stewart or, what's her name, Ray. Okay? I'm going to tell you about the foods. You can go online and figure out how to prepare them. Okay? Now, why is your brain health so important? Why is brain health so important? First off, your life expectancy. We live in a time now where we have medical research on health issues, and we have medical research on prescriptions that allow us to live longer. So what good is living longer if you don't remember anything? You know, you want to live longer, but you want a quality of life, okay? So your life expectancy is probably longer than your parents. And I know it's longer than your grandparents. So you can expect to live longer with the medical research and the medical prescriptions that you get. Let's maximize that. Rethinking retirement. Boy, you talk about an appropriate time. Okay, for years, you know, we saved in our IRAs. We saved our money thinking that we could retire and we would have enough money to continue our lifestyle. Look what happened in the last month. Okay, a lot of you probably got hit in your IRAs or in your savings. And it's probably going to get a little more stressful as we go on. Okay, so what does that do? That means that some of us who had this retirement plan that thought we were doing pretty good, we may have to go out and work again. Guess what? You're going to be competing with young people. Okay? Do you need cognitive skills? Of course you do. Okay? Some of us have worked all our lives and never had a hobby, never did anything but work. I've seen people that die at the desk. You know, they just kept working and working and working, and they had nothing else. Or they retired, and after 6 months, they didn't know what to do. So they went back to work. So there's different ways why we rethink retirement. Let's talk health costs. You don't want to go to the hospital. You don't want to go. Remember COVID? Remember COVID? You didn't go to the hospital. You didn't want to go to the hospital because the hospital was a petri dish. Okay? You went to the hospital, there's a good chance you weren't coming out. Okay? My grandmother, I told you I was telling personal stories. My grandmother, little Italian lady, I don't want to go to the hospital. They kill you in the hospital. Oh, come on, Grandma, go to the hospital. You know, you have to go. Hey, there's some truth to that. Johns Hopkins did a study on death rates in the hospital, and they found out that 250,000 people die a year in the hospital, not for what they went in for. They die from either infection or misdiagnosis. Now, I'm not saying don't go to the hospital. Go to the hospital if you have to, but if you can stay out of the hospital and stay healthy, why go there? Okay. And I talked about the current brain research that says, you know, we can grow brain cells. We can improve our cognitive skills. Okay, let's talk the first thing, learning new things. Think about this. Do you learn new things every day? You should. Look at this community here. You're learning about your neighbors every day, right? Okay, challenge your brain in new ways. Keep your brain moving. Keep the exercises going. All right, what do I mean by exercises? How many here play cards? What kind of cards? What do you play?
I play solitaire.
Solitaire, okay. Solitaire by yourself, okay? Anybody else?
Bridge.
Bridge, okay.
Hand and foot,
Hand and foot, what is that like?
canasta.
Canasta, okay. All right. There was a study done by the University of Wisconsin in Madison on playing cards, okay? Playing cards improves your comprehension and your recall, okay? The two most significant card games, bridge and pinochle, okay? And pinochle, okay? Now, why is that? Because number one, you're playing with partners, okay? Or you're playing against somebody else in pinochle, okay? So now you have a move, counter move. Same with chess, okay? Now, the more people that play in the game, the more challenging the game is. Now, you can play solitaire, but that's you against the machine or you against yourself. If you can play a card game with someone else, now you have a social environment where you can exchange ideas. Think about that, okay? So there is a value in playing cards. Now, poker, there's a real value in playing poker. If you win. Right. Exercise your brain. Okay. We are very fortunate that we have Mary Washington University here. They have elder study courses. You can take studies, you can take extra courses. Your public library has free courses. You can go on your public library site, enroll, and you can take accounting, you can take history, you can take mathematics, you can take science, you can take animal studies. Okay? Go online, it's free. Okay? Everything I'm talking about, I've tried. Okay? So I've taken about 4 or 5 courses off of the library. They're pretty good courses. They're pretty good courses. Okay? There's a program called LOWLINC where you can learn French or you can learn Italian, you can learn Chinese. It has multiple languages there. How many took a language in high school? Everybody. Okay. Can you speak that language now?
Yes.
I couldn't speak it then.
You know, I did 4 years of Latin and a semester of Greek. And I never used Latin. The only time I used Latin was when I was deployed to Germany and I got lost. And there was a little shrine, and it was on the map. And I got to the local priest and I asked him in Latin where I was. That's the only time I've ever used Latin. Okay? But, you know, if you took French or Spanish in high school or college, take out that book and refresh yourself. Okay? Engage your mind. Okay, how many here read? What do you read? What do you read? Anything?
Novels.
Novels. What kind of novels?
Historical fiction.
All right, historical fiction. What else?
Newspapers.
Travel books. Okay. You know, I read a lot. I will not read romance novels. Okay? My wife reads those, you know. And then she has to watch Hallmark Channel. You know? Okay. If you're reading, say you're reading science fiction, branch off every once in a while, try a different genre. Try a different genre. Go from fiction maybe to a biography. Go from Civil War to science fiction. Okay? Branch off. Exercise that brain. Pursue new interests. Look, you're in a community here. There's a lot, I'm sure there's a lot to do. I live in a 55 plus community. Boy, every day there's something going on. You know, there's card games all day long. There's swimming going on. There's pickleball's the big deal. You know, everybody's playing pickleball. Okay? Get out, do something, pursue new interests. Stay curious. How many here have grandchildren? Do you have young grandchildren or great-grandchildren? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the perfect time to, you know, when you were kids, it was great, you know, you walked in the field and you had a dandelion and you picked up the dandelion, you blew it and all those little fluffs went on. You know, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, you thought that was really neat. I took my grandson out, he thought I was a hero because I showed him how to blow the dandelion. You know? But, you know, you see a butterfly, little kids get so excited when they see a frog. You know, they want to take it and hide it and bring it to their mom and scare the hell out of their mom. Okay? They're curious. One of the best experiences I had was take my grandkids in the woods. You know, they were just excited. They saw a snake. They thought that was a big deal. You know, they saw an eagle. You know, this was exciting. Stay curious. You want to stay curious? Take your grandkids out for a walk, or your great-grandkids. Share with them. You know, pick up a worm. Don't be afraid of the worm. Pick up the worm. Show them the worm. Show them that grandma's not afraid of the worm. They did that to my wife. She almost had a heart attack. Okay, challenge your thinking. Go for the hard stuff. You know, if you're doing woodworking, you know, you build your little birdhouse like this, right? That's the normal birdhouse. Put a second story on it. Put a second story on it. Put an extension on it. Make it a little more complicated. You have to do a little more math. You have to do different kinds of cutting. Okay? Challenge your thinking. How do you challenge your thinking? I gotta tell you something. take or teach a class. Teaching a class, you better be prepared, because there's always someone in the audience that wants to stump the chump, okay? All right, so you gotta be prepared. Learn a language, dance. Dancing is good exercise. Musical instrument. How many here play musical instrument? Anyone? What do you play, sir?
Guitar.
Guitar. Okay. Musical instruments are, in order to play a musical instrument, you're doing math. Okay? It's a math exercise because you have a quarter note, you got a half note, you got different sized notes, you got a beat. Okay? It's a mathematical issue. I talked about complex arts and crafts, I talked about board games and card games. Hey, you know, your kids come, or your grandkids come to the house now, they're buried in their phones. You know? Hi, Grandma, and then they're out on the phone. You know? To have them put the phone away and play a board game with them. They probably don't even know what a board game is anymore. Okay? Play a board game. How are you learning new things? What do you learn? What do you do that's different? Anybody?
Genealogy.
Genealogy. There you go. A lot of research. Okay? But if you go with the genealogy, you may learn something about your family you didn't want to learn. You know? You may have a real shady character in your past there. Okay. Socially engaged. Very, very important at our age. Why? Why? Why is it important to have a community of friends and relatives? Why? Look, folks, we're getting older. We may need help. Your neighbors can help you maybe with some of the lawn projects that you can't do anymore, okay? And they can check up on you if you're by yourselves. So you're not, you know, so you, if you need medical attention, you can get it, okay? This is socialization. This is very poor. You're in a community right now. You're in a community right now. And you can see when you people walk in, you're hugging each other, you're saying hello to each other. That's part of your socialization. It's important. Avoid isolation. Let me talk about that. People that are isolated tend to, number one, they're shunning other people for the most part. They're probably not doing the exercises that they need, okay? They're probably not even eating right. Isolation, you need a purpose in life. If you don't have that purpose, you stand to have a 45% chance of an early death or a 65% chance of Alzheimer's, okay? Purpose in life. Having friends establishes a purpose because your friend calls you up and say, what are you doing today? I'm doing nothing. Let's go for a walk, okay? Friendship is very important. Even if you don't go for a walk, you got someone to talk to. You got someone that you can, hey, I got this problem. What do I do? You know, maybe it's a plumbing issue and the person knows a plumber. Okay, it's as simple as that. But it's communicating and it's socializing and it's having somebody there for you. That's important. A pet. How many here have a pet? A lot of people have a pet. Now, do pets have emotions? There they do. A dog can sense when its owner is depressed. Okay? I'm going to tell you another personal story. I worked in the Pentagon, and I had to take the metro in. I would stop at Crystal City and take the metro in, all right? Every morning, there was a woman, she was a vet, she had lost an arm, and she had a service dog. And because she lost her arm, she had that handle just like a blind person would, okay? This dog was a German Shepherd. That dog would come in, and he would lead her to the metro station where the yellow line is, and he would park himself horizontal to the line so she could not cross over. And then the train would come in, and the dog would get up. Dog would carry her pocketbook. Dog would carry her pocketbook because her other hand was on the harness, okay? you didn't touch that dog. And if you tried to take that pocketbook, you were dead meat. That dog will go after you, okay? The other thing that I witnessed is every month in the Pentagon, they would bring the soldiers and the women and the veterans from Walter Reed. And there's some serious injuries, amputees, lost limbs, okay? A lot of them were suffering from PTSD. A lot of them had pets. A lot of them would have a cat or a dog. Why? Why? Why would we give someone with no arms and no legs a dog? Emotional? Right. I have a living, breathing creature, okay? And even though I may be disabled, I still have to take care of that animal. I have to feed it, I have to walk it, I have to clean it, okay? Now, the person who's a quadriplegic has someone doing that for him, but that pet is part of him. I would venture to say that that pet that you own right now is as important as your children. Probably better, so they're probably more behaved. Okay? But having a pet is important. Now, we talked about isolation. Having a pet means you have to walk that dog or that cat. In the process, you meet somebody else that has a dog or a cat. Now you're communicating, comparing notes on your animal. That's socialization. And you're avoiding isolation. Okay? Volunteering. I was surprised. I'm from Connecticut. I was surprised when I moved to Virginia how many people really need help down here. Okay? You would think that, this is a pretty affluent area. It's not. There's a lot of folks that need help. So, after, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to catch the VRE, and then to catch the Metro, I finally retired. And I said, this is great. I don't have to get up in the morning. I can get up when I want. I can go in the garden and do whatever I have to do. And guess what? After 6 months, there's only so many weeds you can pull. All right? I got bored. I didn't know what to do. And I'm thinking, geez, I was only 67 at the time. I got a lot to offer. Look at the room here. Look at the experience in this room. Okay? We need to share that experience. So the church was looking for a work camp contractor. You take a bunch of kids and you put windows in and doors and stuff like that. I said, I can do that. I can do that. So they gave me a bunch of kids. Okay? Gave me a bunch of high school kids. Now, I grew up when my dad was in construction, so I knew what a hammer and a saw were. A lot of these kids didn't. So we spent a couple days teaching them how to use power tools. Whew, that's dangerous, You got a high school kid who's, who's not all there to begin with, and then give them a power saw. All right, so we trained these kids, and when we thought they were trained enough, we gave them a piece of wood and said, cut the wood. So I gave this kid a piece of wood. It was only about this thick. And I said, okay, here's the saw, cut it on the line, we measured it for him. And I'm watching this kid, now this is my work table. I'm watching the kid, and he's struggling with this saw. And all of a sudden, my work table. I go, what the heck? He cut my work table. He cut my work table in half. But I gotta tell you, it was the best experience of my life. Because here I am, 67 years old, with a bunch of high school kids, listening to their music, listening to their jokes, and having lunch with them. It was great. It was great. I loved it. Learned the latest jargon. It was great. And I was accomplishing something. I was doing something for somebody. Okay, I had a purpose. It cost me a lot more money to buy the table. All right, get involved. Join a club. You're in an organization right here. There's all kinds of clubs in town here that you can join. Attend community events. Plenty of community events. We have the lecture series here at Mary Washington. We have all kinds of days at the park and all this other stuff going on around here. Adopt a pet. Volunteer with your local nonprofit, okay? So what do you do to stay socially engaged? What do you do? How many go to church? That's a social engagement. It's not just a worship service. It's a chance to mingle with your neighbors, okay? A lot of churches will have a tea or a coffee after their mass or whatever it is that they're having. Okay? It's a social event.
Play ping pong.
Okay.
Play ping pong.
Play ping pong. Okay. Play ping pong. You're socially engaged. You're involved. Okay? You're involved. Any kind, any sports where you can have more than one person is good. All right? Let's talk exercise. All right? You don't need to have a gym membership, and you don't need to have a treadmill in your house. Anybody have a treadmill? You use it?
No.
It's a hanger, right? You hang your clothes on the treadmill.
That's what he said.
Okay?
It's a hanger.
Yeah, it's a hanger. Okay. Look, all you need is about 150 minutes a week. Now, you could be watching TV, and during the commercials are about 5 minutes long, you can get up and do some isometrics. You can do this, push up against a wall, okay? You can up and down on your couch, and the back of the couch. You can walk, all right? Just march during the commercials. All you have to do is 150 minutes a week. The whole purpose is to get your butt off the couch. Get moving, okay? Doesn't matter what you do, you can move. Now, there's a couple of, physical activity is important because number one, it impacts the same area in your brain where lesions occur, okay? Those lesions are the ones that result in Alzheimer's and dementia, okay? So if you're exercising that same area of the brain where those lesions occur. So there's a good chance that you can prevent the lesions from getting any worse than they are by exercise. You might be able to eliminate them altogether, all right? Increased circulation. Look, when you're moving, the blood is circulating in your body. And you need the circulation for the muscles, the bones, the mind, okay? It all works together. You can go outside now, and you can walk around, and you'll come back, and you'll be exhausted. And that's a good exhaustion, okay? Might even be able to take a nap after that, okay? But it reduces anxiety and improves sleep. Now, when I was in the Army, I had a boss, he worked us hard. And this was during Desert Storm. We had all kinds of stuff going on. And one day he comes to me and goes, "Mike, come on, we're going to go out for a run." And I said, "I don't have time. You need it. You need to relax a little bit." Okay, so we go out for a 5-mile run. And while we're running, he's giving me more tasks to do. And I said, "Hey, you told me to do this to relax. You're giving me more work. I don't need this. I can go run by myself and be happy. I don't need this." Okay. Exercise reduces the risk of diabetes, depression, and stroke. Okay? Do this within reason. See this here? Before you start your exercises, talk to a health care provider to make sure you can. Or get to a professional and he'll explain to you what you can and can't do. You don't go out and start doing a 5-mile run right now. Most of us aren't capable of doing that right now. But we might be able to walk 2 blocks. Okay? And you start small. Walking. Great exercise. Okay? It's a non-impact exercise. Dancing, running, swimming, biking, all good. Got to talk to you about dancing. Do you remember when disco was out? You remember disco?
Yeah.
Remember John Travolta in his white, doing this thing? Remember that?
Yes.
I thought that was cool. I wanted a white jacket. I wanted to look like John Travolta. So my wife and I took dancing lessons. Well, my wife's a good dancer. She's been dancing ever since she was a little kid. We get 3 lessons. The 3rd lesson, the instructor comes up and says, I'm giving you your money back. She says, you have no rhythm. So I never got my white suit. All right? But dancing is good. Strength training, all you need at this age is tone and balance. Okay? Those are the exercises that you should concentrate on. You need tone. You don't have to lift heavy weights and bulk up. You just need to keep what you got working. Okay? And your balance is important because all of us right now probably have a tendency to wobble and have a tendency to fall. You want to prevent falls. You want to prevent falls as much as possible because that's where you get hurt badly. And once that starts, it's a downward decline pretty much. Okay? So watch your balance, watch your tone of your muscles. Okay? Tai Chi, yoga, great exercises. Meditation, okay? And breathing and relaxing. Okay? Any questions? Okay, some ways you move and exercise, we talked about that. All right, here we go. Healthy diet. You all heard of a Mediterranean diet, right?
Yes.
Mediterranean diet is less red meat, more poultry, okay? There's a DASH diet. Anybody know what a DASH diet is? It's for hypertension, okay? This is the MIND diet. It's a combination of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet. We're talking more poultry. We're talking water, okay? We don't stress enough water. Olive oil, eggs, okay? That's what we're talking here, okay? How about wine? Is wine good for you?
It's moderation.
In moderation. Okay, let me tell you a story again. I'm Italian, okay? So wine is a staple in my household. Was a staple. Okay, so I am the only grandson that made wine with my grandfather. I didn't make the wine, I ate the grapes, you know, but I was pressing them with him and stuff. I was about 5 years old, okay? My grandfather and grandmother drank wine, and I would get a glass of wine with a little bit of soda in it. You don't drink it. My mom and dad had wine at the table. My mom went for a physical, and the doctor said, Angie, you're in great shape. What's your secret? She says, I drink wine every day. And he said, keep it up. She goes home and tells my dad, doctor says I have to drink more wine. All right, but what we're looking at is, we're looking at more fish and seafood. We're looking at nuts. Your nuts are very good. Your almonds, your cashews, your pistachios are great. The problem with nuts is that they're high in calories. So you have to watch that. Beans, all your legumes are great. Grains, leafy green vegetables. You know, your spinach, your broccoli, your
Yes.
kale. Yeah, I'm a northern boy. Didn't know what kale was. Olive oil, okay? Olive oil. And here's where the kale comes in. I had no idea what kale was when I came down here. The first time I had kale, I thought somebody had mowed their lawn and put it in my dish. Okay? So, but now I know what kale is, and we have it. Whole berries, your strawberries, your blueberries, your blackberries, all your berries are good for you. Vinegar, lemon, your herbs and spices to replace salt, okay? So instead of using salt, try your lemon or your vinegar as a flavoring, okay? Cut down on the salt, especially for those that need a salt-free diet. Salmon, sardines, and the walnuts and almonds I already talked about. What do you eat as part of a healthy diet? What do you have? Do you have a nationality dish? Is it healthy? Yeah? Now I gotta tell you a story. I did this, it wasn't Lake of the Woods, it was another community. where I'm doing the presentation on brain health, and they got a table spread out with all kinds of goodies, okay? And I'm talking brownies, cupcakes, cake, you know? And I point out and I go to them, I said, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And the woman goes, they are healthy, there's blueberries in the muffin. Okay, sleep. All right. To stay healthy, you need about 7 to 12 hours of sleep a day. That doesn't mean at night. That means you're allowed to take a nap during the day. Look at our age, we earned it. You know, we're allowed to take a nap, okay? Practice good sleep techniques. Look, you can't, well, maybe you can. I can't function like I did when I was 20 years old. You know, I could party all night long and then go to work the next day. That don't happen anymore.
You don't work.
I don't work. That's good, so I can party all day long.
You just got another story.
That's good. That's a good one. The problem not right now is biologically, I have to go to bed before 10 o'clock. Otherwise, I'm sleeping on the couch, okay? So you got to adjust that. You got to adjust your rhythm as you get old, okay? So try to get yourself into a routine where you go to bed at a certain time and you wake up at a certain time, okay? Get yourself outside as much as you can. Outdoor lighting is good for you, okay? Get out there, get the fresh air, get regenerated, okay? Your sleep is going to be easily interrupted as you get older. Look, do I have to explain what that means?
No.
Okay? You're going to be making trips more to the bathroom as you get older. That's just a given, okay? And I talked about your clock shifting. You can't function as a 20-year-old anymore. Any questions on that, on sleep? All right, a couple of tips. Watch your caffeine intake before you go to bed, okay? Watch your caffeine intake. Get away from the caffeine, and that includes the sodas with the caffeine, okay? Get away from that. Don't use caffeine for several hours before you go to bed, okay? So get rid of the caffeine. I know you love your pets. How many of you have your pets sleep with you? Do they distract you? Do they interrupt your sleep?
Sometimes, not always.
Okay, well, a little advice, maybe get them out of your bedroom.
If they start disturbing me, I kick them off.
There you go, there you go, there you go. Okay, you know, we talked about the caffeine, but reduce your fluids and foods 3 hours before you go to bed, okay? And that means when you're watching TV, you're not munching. You know, you're not munching before you go to bed. Your smartphones, your TVs, your electronics, keep it out of the bedroom, okay? Train your body that when it's time to go to bed, it's time to go to bed. Your brain is going to dislodge and you're going to go to sleep, okay? The sleep is important. Sleep is like a chemical dishwasher, a neurological dishwasher. When you go to sleep, your brain is offline, and it's a time to cleanse all of the cellular debris from the molecular activity that occurs during the day, okay? You know if you don't get a good night's sleep and you wake up, you're still tired, and you're probably not functioning at 100%. Anybody been through that? You know, almost every day, you know? You wake up and you don't get enough sleep, you're still tired. Well, that's because the mind has not been thoroughly cleaned, okay? That's why the nap in between the day may be important. That may be the extra impetus you need for the brain to clean itself. But look, your smartphones, your TVs, and things like that, you got call waiting or you got a answering machine, use it. You know, if it's really important, somebody will get to you, okay? But you don't have to keep the phone going all night long.
So how do you call 911 if you think you have a problem?
Well, you have the phone with you, you know? You have the phone
What
with
you're
you.
saying, you're saying out of the bedroom.
What they're saying out of the bedroom. What I'm saying is, at our age, we need a phone, okay? So you have a phone close by, but have it off. Or have it on vibrate.
Scrolling it.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, you're not playing with it, you're not playing with it. You know, it's time to go to bed, go to bed. All right, stress. Let's talk stress.
Oh, we don't know that.
We all have it, okay? We all have it. Some stress is good, a lot of stress is bad. Too much stress will kill you, all right? Exercising helps reduce the stress. You know, pick the exercises that you can do within your means. I'll tell you another story. When I retired, I met a friend, and we would go to the gym every day. I had somebody to work out with. So we were on a treadmill. There were 3 treadmills at the YMCA in Fredericksburg, okay? We had the right one and the middle. This young girl gets up on the 3rd one. Now, you knew she was a runner. She was, you know, she had her spandex, she had a little ponytail, she had the whole bit. And, you know, we're over there, we're doing a pretty easy run. She cranks it up. She cranks it up, and I'm watching my friend, and he's cranking it up. He's cranking it up. And I'm thinking, this is not going to go well. And the next thing I know is a crash, and he has flown off the back end. He has flown off the back end of the treadmill. And the girl, she's just looking at him like, you idiot, you know? If you're going to exercise, do it within your means. Do it within your capability. And don't show off. You don't have to show off anymore. Because that young girl didn't care about it. She wasn't going to give him a second look. Even if he was in shape. Okay. Distract yourself with music and reading to manage stress. You know, things get tough. Go out on the porch, grab a book. The book can't holler at you. You know? The book can't make you mad. All right? Read the book. All right? Listen to music. Seek out green spaces. That means get outside. Go in the woods. You know? Go to the park. Take your grandkids to the park. And above all, smile and laugh. All right? When you go to a party, you don't go to the guy that's down in the dumps. You know, you go to somebody that's fun. You know, if you wanted to be down in the dumps, you could have stayed at home. All right? So, smile and laugh. Now remember, you don't stop laughing because you got old. You got old because you stopped laughing. All right? How do you manage stress? Confide in friends. Be silent and still. We're allowed to have no noise for a while. You don't have to be talking all the time. You can sit down on the porch and just look at the trees, okay? And just relax and enjoy the nature that God put there for you. Take stretch breaks, limit your screen time, take deep breaths. Now, let me talk about deep breaths, okay? In the Pentagon, you work in a cubicle. There are no windows. If you get a window, you're a big shot, okay? So you're in a cubicle. I had a cubicle, and surrounding me was my staff. And this one day I'm hearing, what is that? You know, so I get out, and one of my action officers is meditating. Now this is during lunch, which is fine, and she's meditating. And I said, I waited till she was finished, and afterwards I said, what are you doing? She says, it's so stressful here that I use my lunch period to meditate. Fine, I don't want you stressed. Fine, meditate. Well, now I'm hearing 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I said, fine, I said to her, look, I said, I got a pile of work on my desk because it's not moving, and I'm getting stressed. So here's what you do. You do your stress techniques at your time at lunch, not on my time, because you're stressing me out. Okay? So, but what I'm saying here is meditate. Yoga is pretty good. There's also a program in Stafford called Aikido. It is a combination of judo and balance and meditation. And it's for the elder, not the elder, it's for us older folks, okay? It's a not, there's no fall. It's not like somebody flips you across the room. And, you know, there's no falling on the ground. It's just little techniques. It's almost like yoga, okay? But you do a lot of balance, and you do a lot of breathing, and you do a little bit of muscle tone. But it's also a way to relieve stress, because you're taking the deep breaths. Okay. All right, here's a breathing technique. If you're stressful, number one, count to 10. Okay, count to 10. Just count to 10. Bring that anxiety down. Sit in the chair and just concentrate on yourself. Concentrate on the fact that here I am, and there's a giant eraser, okay? And you're starting from your feet, and you erase from your feet all the way up to your head, all right? Count to 10 again, and go back to work, okay? But you've erased that anxiety. You're concentrating on relaxing all parts of your body, okay? Very, very simple. Doesn't cost you anything. Okay, here's some threats to brain health. You all know smoking is bad for you. So if you're smoking, try and cut down on your smoking. If you can cut it out completely, do that, okay? Because smoking not only affects the lungs, it affects the brains. And you can get a stroke from smoking. Depression. Depression is tied in with isolation. Depression is an illness, it's a sickness, and it can affect you at any age, right? Normally, we're all gonna have sadness in our life. We're gonna lose somebody, we're gonna have a bad romance, we're gonna lose a father or a mother, or something bad's gonna happen to us. That's life, okay? And usually we're sad, and we may be resentful for a while, but it goes away. Depression is when it doesn't go away. Depression is when it lingers and you can't get back to normal. That's dangerous, okay? Because now if you're depressed, you're probably going to start isolation, and you're probably not going to do what you're supposed to be doing. You're probably not going to be doing your exercise, you're probably not eating right, and you're on a spiral on the way down, okay? You see someone that's depressed, get them help. Get them medical help if you can. Or at least encourage them to get help. Look, certain medications. At our age, we're probably on some kind of pills. If you're not, boy, you're doing great, okay? Most of us are on some kind of medication. You gotta watch the medication, because some of the medications may counteract each other. Now, do medications affect your brain? I just had hip surgery. They gave me Oxycontin, okay? Hey, I was having hallucinations, okay? So it definitely affects your brain, okay? So watch the prescriptions that you take. Make sure the doctor understands what you're taking. Make sure it's not counteracting. If you have any, if you suspect that it is, contact the pharmacist. He'll know, okay? Hearing and vision loss. This has a direct effect on socialization, although it doesn't have to. As you get older, and if your hearing isn't impacted, you may feel isolated because you can't take part in conversations at the table because you don't hear what's going on. Or your vision may be such that you can't see as well. That doesn't mean you can't stop living, okay? You can go see an audiologist, you can maybe get hearing aids, maybe get some other things. You folks had the Disability Resource Center here. They have a whole section on hearing loss. They also have I believe a sight program. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, they do.
Okay, yeah. And, have people use those assets, because it brings them back into society where they can share, and they can be part of the social environment.
And if I could add to that,
Go ahead.
kale helps your eyes. It has vitamin K, and it's very good for your eyes.
There you go. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I knew carrots were good for your eyes. Because, okay. A woman asked me one time, speaking of that, she came up and said, I have a hearing loss. Is there any food I can eat for my hearing? And I said, yeah, my mom said, you know, if I didn't clean my ears, I'd grow potatoes, but, you know. All right, heart disease. Heart disease is dangerous. If you have heart disease, you need to see a doctor and you need to be under medical treatment because heart disease can lead to stroke and heart attack. Okay, so take care of that. All right, tips for improving memory. Okay, I left you a couple of telephone memo pads there that you can use. You can have those for your memory. That's why they invented stickies. You know, you make yourself a little note. You ought to see our refrigerator. It's multicolored. You know, we got purples and pinks and yellows all over the place. And my wife's got it up there. It's like, you know, do this, do this, do this. We can't, you know, we don't even know where the notes are. We can't find, there's so many notes in there, we can't even remember what we're supposed to be doing with the notes. But use notes. The other thing is pay attention. When your wife is talking, pay attention. Okay? Actually try to listen to her. Okay? The problem I have is I'm totally deaf in this ear, and when my wife starts talking, that's the ear I point to her. You know? But you've got to pay attention. If you're having problems, then face the person and try reading the lips. Okay? Like that. Okay? Enough said, I'm paying attention. Okay. Avoid multitasking. Look, folks, at our age, we've already juggled all the balls. You know, when we were young, we juggled 4 or 5 balls at the same time. You don't have to do that anymore. You know, you can take it one step at a time. Juggle 1 ball at a time. Just like that. Just juggle 1 ball. Okay. Establish a routine. The same thing I talked about with sleeping. You know, get yourself into a routine on a daily basis. You know, you get up in the morning, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And that way, it'll improve your memory. Okay? Take a break. Don't get yourself stressed. And use a calendar. Use your cell phone. Use reminders. Okay? Now look, if you misplace your keys, that's probably part of the normal process. But if you find your keys in the refrigerator, that's a different ballgame. Okay? That's getting a little serious. It's weird, you know? So, you know, we lose the keys all the time. They're always in pockets or a pocketbook or something. But the day it comes when my wife has it in the refrigerator, that's when she's going to get help. You know, we're going to take her someplace and get her squared away. All right, look, boost your brain. You had this little class. Look, what are you going to do in the next 24 hours? What are you going to do when you wake to make a difference in your life? Maybe you'll do some stretching exercises. Okay? In the morning, you know, what are you going to have for breakfast? Instead of the bagel, maybe you want kale and eggs.
Eggs, baby.
At lunch, what are you going to do? What are you going to eat? Early afternoon activity. You know, maybe you're going to go out with a friend, take a walk. Late afternoon, what are you going to do? After the walk, probably take a nap. Take a nap. What are you going to have for dinner? You know, instead of that steak, maybe you're going to have a salmon. Maybe you'll have more kale. And, you know, what are you going to do in the evening hours? Okay? Just think about that. Put together a schedule for yourself, a healthy schedule. And pick one thing that's going to help your brain. Little steps. You know, a 10-minute walk, add a different serving of vegetables. You know, if you haven't had kale, try kale. Make an appointment for a physical exam. Write down what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Okay? Make yourself a little journal. More important though, get support from your family and your community. Don't do this alone. You know, you can have a partner and you can compare notes on what you're preparing for dinner and keep yourself in track, on a healthy diet. You know, don't tell me a pizza with sardines and mushrooms and cheese, you know, and peppers is a healthy diet, okay? I'm talking about a real meal, okay? Pizza's good, but it's not one of your health groups. Okay, there's a couple of resources here. You can go online and go to AARP.org, hit brain health, a lot. Matter of fact, the whole presentation is probably on there. Okay, take a look at that. There's also AARP Learn at 50 Plus, gives you some ideas and learning opportunities. All of this is free of charge and it's all on the net. Any questions to me? I had fun doing this. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay healthy.